Hello everybody and welcome back to this channel. This is part 2 in the video series of analyzing the poem The Garden of Love. In today's video we'll be looking at past exam questions and the answers to those questions. And like I've explained before on this channel, many learners, it's not that they don't know the content of that particular poem. It's just that sometimes when they are sitting in the exam venue or actually completing the exam, they struggle with relaying the content knowledge that they had learned or studied onto that exam answer sheet. So today we're going to look at some tips and tricks on how to answer. As always, don't forget to like this video, comment below, and subscribe. Lastly, before I forget, if you know of any grade 12s out there or perhaps need additional assistance with regards to studying English home language, I encourage you to please share this video. Okay guys, so let us jump into it and let's start with question number 1. As always, in your exam, they'll tell you which line to look at, right? And as I said, always page back um, in your exam paper to check what line they are referring to, especially if there's an ellipsis and let's say for example they say refer to lines 1 to 3, they're not going to quote that whole line for you, and of course you're not going to remember the entire poem out of your head, so go back and forth between the actual poem and the questions. Okay, so back to question number 1, everybody. Refer to line 1. I went to the garden of love. So the question is 2 marks and you need to state, how does the word garden create an expectation in the mind of the reader, right? So when you hear the word garden, right, when you read line 1, the speaker says, I went to the garden of love, right? And when you hear that word garden, what comes to your mind, right? What do you expect is going to happen, right? And again, I try not to go too far off with your expectation. Don't now say, oh, the speaker is going to the garden for a picnic, right? Your answer still needs to fit in with the context of what is happening in the entire poem, right? So we know that this poem has got to do with tranquility in the beginning that the speaker had experienced and the sweet memories that he had when he was a child. And then there was this chapel where the garden used to be, and he's alluding to this idea that religion is restricting, right? So now let's now take a step back, okay? Again, you hear the word garden. What do you expect? Now I'm first going to read you the second part, right? A garden is associated as being a place of peace and tranquility, right? So we all have that idea in our head when we think of a garden, right? But now we need to relate it to this particular poem, right? So for 2 marks, again, what does the reader expect? So your answer should look like something like this, okay? The reader will expect the speaker to enter an area that is open, free, and beautiful. But now remember, guys, as I've said before, 2 marks equals 2 points or 2 sentences, right? So you can't just say that I expect that the speaker is going to enter this open, free, and beautiful place, right? Give an explanation as to why you say that, right? Because 2 marks, 2 points, 2 sentences. So what would be the second point, right? And we've gone over that just now, as a garden is associated as being a place of peace and tranquility. Give some sort of justification or substantiation with regards to why you gave that initial response. Okay, question number 2, right? So here it says refer to lines 3 to 4. A chapel was built in the mist where I used to play on the green. 2.1. Explain the significance of these lines in the context of the poem. Right? 3 marks, 3 points, 3 sentences. So is actually happening here in this line? Okay. So I would say explain line 3, explain line 4, and then say how it fits in with the context of the whole poem. Right? So again, you need to refer to the poem as a whole A chapel was built in the mist where I used to play on the green, right? Refer to the speaker and what is happening to him. Okay, let's look at the answer. Right, I don't want to confuse you guys too much. So, the sight of a chapel should have been a joyful experience for the speaker. However, the speaker feels as though the chapel has intruded on his pleasant and carefree childhood memories. Right? So you're explaining those two lines, and then you're going to relay it to the context of the poem. Ultimately, the speaker is revealing his disapproval as he believes that religion is invasive, and I would also add there, and restrictive. Okay. 2.2, what impression, what idea? Right? Don't forget, if you get this in your exam and they ask you for what impression, they're asking you what idea of the speaker's youth is created in line 4. So you're just going to look at line 4 now. So the speaker is saying, where I used to play on the green. So what idea do you get from the speaker's childhood, right? So the impression created of the speaker's youth is that it was a time of joy, freedom, and innocence, right? Because he uses the word play, right? This line suggests how unrestricted one's pleasure in childhood was. Okay, let's go to question 3. Okay, let me just go up. Refer to lines 5 to 6. And the gates of this chapel were shut, and thou shalt not let over the door. There's supposed to be a full stop here. What impression do the words gates and shut create of supposed to be the chapel? Sorry, guys. Okay, so think of the word. Think of a gate. Why do you put a gate on a door? Right? Some sort of protection to keep others out. Right? Why? Now the speaker uses the word the doors. Um, sorry, the gates were shut, right? So shut, it's locked, it's closed, you can't open it, right? So just think about that. What do the words gates tell me? What does the word, what does the word gates tell me? And what does the word shut tell me, right? It's fairly easy, right? So the gates of the shuttle, the gates of the chapel, sorry, is shut, right? So what idea do you get from that? Okay, the words gates and shut create the impression that the chapel signifies restriction, loss of free will, and a lack of welcome. Because imagine you go to somebody's house and the doors are closed and the gates are shut, right? Do you feel welcome? It's locked, you can't get in, right? So it's restricted, that area is restricted because you can't get in, right? And that's the impression that is created. Okay, 3.2. Discuss how the diction in these lines contribute to the speaker's tone. Okay, so again, you break it up. It's 3 marks there. Right? So diction, we know, excuse me, refers to words. Diction equals words. You must remember this when you study. Okay, so you need to quote words, right, or quote examples from the poem, right? But not from the poem, from lines 5 to 6, right? And then you need to say, okay, the speaker's tone is so and so and so. Why do you say that? How do you know? Because the speaker uses these words, right? So this you have to break up. Okay, grade 12s, 3 marks, 3 points, right? I would say 2 points for diction, two different examples of diction, but you need to explain the diction. You can't just say gates and shut and thou shalt not, and then you don't explain why you have used that specific diction. Okay, then you also need to identify, the tone, right? So let's start with tone, or you can do it the other way around, right? You can start with diction. The speaker uses as a frustrated or disappointed. Let me just do this. A frustrated, disappointed, or dismayed tone, right? How do we know that the speaker is disappointed, for example, right? Or frustrated or dismayed, right? You need to prove it, and you need to prove that with diction. So you're going to quote words like here and here, right? And you're going to explain those quotes. So again, this is evident in the words gates and shut, which signifies restriction, loss of free will, and a lack of welcome, which we've just explained now. And then also the writing of thou shalt not, let me just put a full stop there, over the door of the chapel, not chapter, makes reference to the Ten Commandments, which forbids certain behaviors and reinforces the sense of restriction. So that is why we know the speaker feels frustrated, disappointed, or dismayed. And then the last question for question 3.3. Critically comment on how the description of the chapel in lines 5 and 6 reveals the speaker's attitude to religion. Okay, so again, we're going to break it up. We're going to use the descriptions of gates and shut and thou shalt not. Which is basically the same idea repeated here, guys, but it's just asked in different questions. Okay. Okay. The description of the gates being shut reveals that the chapel is a restricted and limited place that is not easily accessible. Right? We've just gone over that now. The writing of thou shalt not, there must be a full stop there, over the door of the chapel makes reference to the Ten Commandments, which forbids certain behaviors and reinforces the sense of restriction. Therefore, these descriptions reflect the speaker's disapproving attitude towards religion, as he believes that religion is restrictive. Okay, so again, it's just the same idea being repeated here. Okay, question 4. What does the word sweet line 8 convey about the speaker's memories? Okay, so I forgot what line 8 is about, so I'm going to go all the way back into the question paper. Okay, so I turn to the garden of love that so many sweet flowers bore. Okay, so I know what's going on in line 8, and then I'll go back to my question. What does the word sweet line 8 convey about the speaker's memories? The term sweet suggests that the speaker's memories are cherished as they are remembered with pleasure and nostalgia because the speaker is reminded of carefree and unrestricted times. Okay, that's a nice and straightforward answer, guys. Okay. And again, grade 12s, like I've explained before, if you get stuck and you don't know what I'm speaking about with regards to the answers, right, then I want you to go back and watch the video on the line by line analysis of the Garden of Life, right, which is also on this channel. Okay, question 5. Consider lines 7 to 10. So I turn to the Garden of Love, dot, 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 ellipsis, where flowers should be. Now again, right, I don't remember 7 to 10 out of my head. So I'm going to highlight, and you will obviously do this with a highlighter on your exam paper, and then you go reread those particular lines they want you to refer to. So I'm going to read 7 to 10 again for myself. So I turn to the Garden of Love. So I turn to the Garden of Love that so many sweet flowers bore, and I saw it was filled with graves and tombstones with where flowers should be. Okay, so I've got an idea of what's going on. Okay, where was that? Question 5, I think. Comment on the effectiveness of the contrasting symbols within the context of the poem. Let's break up the question. Effectiveness means, is what's being said here in these lines, does it fit in? Right? Does it go together? Does the imagery, right? Does the figurative language fit in with the literal? Right? So effective, does it correspond? Does it fit together? Is it appropriate? Is it effective? Right? Does it work? Does the image that the speaker creates work? So, for example, if somebody is super tall, right, and you are saying that boy is like a giraffe, right? Is that image or that figure of speech effective? Yes, it is effective. Uh, a giraffe is tall, The boy is tall. So it fits together. But if you say the boy is tall like a the boy is tall like a banana, example, right? Does that fit in? Is a banana tall? No, right? So guys, it needs to fit together. So you need to say, do the contrasting symbols, right? In these lines, right? Fit in, right? With the context of the poem. Now, contrast means opposite, and symbols means one thing used to represent another thing, right? So let's just go to lines 7 to 10 quickly. And we're looking for two ideas that are opposite. Okay, I'm just going to get a different color highlighter. So I turned to the garden of love that so many sweet flowers bore, and I saw it was filled with graves and tombstones where flowers should be. So if you look at the word flowers, right? Right? Flowers, what do flowers symbolize? Think about that for a moment, right? Then the speaker also uses the words the word graves and the word tombstones. Okay, let me just highlight tombstones and not and. Okay, grade 12s. So graves and tombstones symbolize or represent one idea. Then we also have flowers representing another idea, right? So these are opposite to each other, these contrast each other. Now you need to say, do these contrasting symbols fit in with the entire context of the poem, with everything that is happening in the poem? But now we need to break it up. Okay, let me just check which question is that. Question 5. Okay, okay, so I don't want this highlighter pin on anymore. How do I switch it off now? Okay, there we go. So let's read it again. Consider lines 7 to 10. Right? Comment on the effectiveness on the contrasting symbols within the context of the poem. So, guys, first, let us say, what do flowers symbolize? What do graves and tombstones symbolize? And how does that fit in with the idea of the poem? Okay, so the symbolism of flowers represents the beauty and joy of the natural world. However, we put our however there because we are going to show there is an opposite, right? There's a contrast happening here. However, this idea is contrasted with the symbolism of graves and tombstones, which represents death and the church's fixation on rules and restrictions. Right? The contrasting symbols therefore indicate, I would say indicate the church's rejection of freedom, beauty, and joy in this world. Okay, so I hope I kind of explained to you effectively what is going on in that question. Perhaps you want to rewind and just recap on what I've said, right? If it still doesn't make sense. Question 6. Refer to line 11. And priests in black gowns were walking their rounds. Discuss the effectiveness of the imagery in this line. So again, we're going to do the same. We're going to break it up. What is happening in this line? And then does it fit in with the overall idea of the poem? Right? Okay, 3 marks, 3 points. The black gowns of the priests reveal the lack of compassion and approachability in the way they look. Right? The priests are wearing black gowns, and the way they are walking around, it's like, oh my word, I can't go up to this man and speak to him, sort of thing. Right? Excuse me. The priests are walking their rounds as if they are prison warders, resulting in their presence being threatening and ominous. That ominous means something bad is going to happen. Therefore, the image in line 11 is effective as the speaker is revealing that the priest's intentions are to control and suppress people's enjoyment and freedom. Right? So don't forget, you need to, if they ask you about effectiveness, you need to mention effective in your answer. Okay, question 7. Refer to the refer to the final stanza. And I saw it was filled with graves, dot dot dot, binding with briars, my joys and desires. So we need to go all the way up. I think I'm going to use a different color now, guys. So let's recap on the last stanza. And a stanza is a paragraph in poetry. And I saw it was filled with graves and tombstones where flowers should be, and priests in black gowns were walking their rounds and binding with briars my joys and desires. Okay, cool. Now let's go back to our question, number 7, I believe. Comment how these lines convey the central idea of the poem. And if you are familiar with this channel, or if you have been, I wouldn't say trying to spot the exam, but you should by now notice that there are certain questions that the examiners ask quite frequently, right? So there's another question about the central idea of the poem. And the central idea means, what is the core idea, right? What is the message? What is the speaker trying to relay? If you have to summarize this whole poem and you have to say to someone at home, okay, mom, dad, right? I'm going to explain to you in one sentence what this poem is about, right? Then you look at the central idea, right? So you obviously need to know what the central idea is. And if we analyze this poem and if we're going through all the questions, there is a certain idea that keeps popping up. This idea of restriction that religion allegedly creates. I have mentioned this before in the video part 1 of this video series of the Garden of Love, our line by line analysis. Guys, if you um, are a religious person, if you come from a religious background, um, you have to keep a super open mind, or a big open mind, if that makes sense, when you are analyzing this poem, right? So whichever religion you belong to, or whichever religion you follow, that's the word I'm looking for, right? Keep an open mind, right? Obviously, the speaker or the poet, right, William Blake, his idea on religion is going to be different to what we believe, right? So just because you are answering this doesn't mean that you are believing the same, right? So just keep a super big open mind when you are analyzing this poem, okay? Okay, let's come back to it. Um, Let me read it again. And I saw it was filled with graves and tombstones where flowers should be, and priests in black gowns were walking their rounds and binding binding with briars my joys and desires. Okay, gone over the stanza. Let's read the question again. Comment how these lines convey the central idea of the poem. So we're gonna explain what is happening in the line, and then at the end, for our third mark, we are going to say what is the central idea of the poem. And 3 marks again, grade 12s, 3 points, 3 sentences. You're not going to get the 3 marks if you just write one sentence or one idea. Right? Of course not. Right? You need to write more than you are supposed to. Right? Start by explaining what is happening in the final stanza. So instead of life flourishing, we get this idea from flowers. The garden is now associated with death as it is filled with graves and tombstones. Additionally, the priests are walking their rounds as if they are prison warders, resulting in their presence being threatening and ominous. Right? We are breaking up what is happening in the final stanza, we're explaining it. Now we are going to identify the central idea of the poem. So we just commented on the final lines of the poem. Break up your question in your exam. Take a highlighter, take a ruler, take a pen, circle the parts. Ask yourself, okay, it's 3 marks. How am I going to break this answer up? Right? You broke it up by first explaining what's happening in the final stanza. Now for our third mark, we are going to say, what is the poet's central idea? And let's look at it. Therefore, the lines reveal the poet's central idea that religion deprives one of joy and restricts one's individual freedom and fulfillment in life. And again, guys, keep an open mind, right? And you should be familiar with this sort of idea from Life of Pi as well, right? Because Pi disputes this idea. Anyway, that's a video for another day. Okay, line question 8, sorry. Refer to lines 9 to 12. So we're looking at the same last stanza. The poem's concluding lines. Okay, let's take this out. The concluding lines of the poem reveal that religion deprives one of joy and restricts one's individual freedom and fulfillment in life. Okay, that is a statement. Right? You often get statements at the beginning of your essay questions. Right? So you need to look at the statement. Let's read the statement again. The concluding lines of the poem reveal that religion deprives one of joy and restricts one's individual freedom and fulfillment in life. Critically discuss the validity. Is it valid? Is this statement valid? Do you agree? Right? And you need to refer to diction and tone in your answer. So, is this valid? Right? And now we can look at diction and tone. Now again, right? I would do the same. I would just one for tone, one for diction, one example, one sentence, and then you explain why you say that statement is true, right? 3 marks. Okay, diction. Instead of, now again, we're using the same idea we're using the question before this. Instead of life flourishing, flowers, the garden is now associated with death as it is filled with graves and tombstones. Additionally, the priests are walking their rounds as if they are prison warders, resulting in their presence being threatening and ominous. The tone, what is the tone of the poem? The speaker depicts a disapproving tone in lines 9 to 12. Therefore, the statement that religion deprives one of joy and restricts one's individual freedom and fulfillment in life is valid. Okay, I'll take that out. Account for the irony in the title The Garden of Love. Now, guys, what is irony? Irony, I would also say, refers to opposite. It doesn't fit together. It doesn't make sense when you read it, right? So if you look at the Garden of Love, right, you had a certain idea. If you look at question 1 that we just went over in the beginning of this lesson, the Garden of Love, right, the reader expects a certain idea, right? However, based on our knowledge of the poem as a whole, right, was that idea was that expectation met? No, it wasn't the same because what is what we associate with the garden is not being represented in this poem, right? And that's why the title, The Garden of Love, is ironic. And let's look at our answer. 3 marks. The reader will expect that the title, The Garden of Love, refers to the speaker entering an area that is open, free, and beautiful, as a garden is associated as being a place of peace and tranquility. Right? That's the idea of what a garden is. However, this is ironic. The title is ironic. But now, guys, if you get an irony question, right, you need to have. I'm just going to do a little diagram here for you. You might get an irony question in your paper 1 as well. Irony refers to opposite, right? So, one idea. So it's difficult to write on this laptop. And then, comma, however, comma, then you write, this is ironic because, and then you have your opposite idea. Okay, understand, guys? So, irony opposite, first indicate the one opposite, then you indicate the other opposite, and then don't forget to have, however, this is ironic because. It's a question on irony, so you need to write that in your answer. Okay, let's go back. The reader will expect that so remember, we're looking at the first idea, and then comma, ever, comma, this is ironic because, and our second idea. Okay. The reader will expect that the title, The Garden of Love, refers to the speaker entering an area that is open, free, and beautiful, as a garden is associated as being a place of peace and tranquility. However, this title is ironic because, right? The question is asking us to account for the irony. However, this title is ironic because the garden the garden's present state is not the beautiful garden that the speaker once remembered when he was a child, and this highlights that the speaker believes that religion deprives one of joy and restricts one's individual freedom and fulfillment in life. So, guys, it's again that same idea being repeated. Okay, explain what the title of the poem is. Is okay. Explain why the title of the poem is misleading and ineffective. Okay, so no, the title of the, the, the poem, The Garden of Love, is not appropriate as the title is misleading as it contradicts, right, the reality of the descriptions of the garden as depicted in the poem. A garden is usually associated with freedom, tranquility, and beauty. However, this garden is described as a place of restriction. It is joyless, somber, and ominous. Excuse me. Account for the repetition of and throughout the poem. So, guys, if you look at the last stanza, right, I just remembered off the top of my right, the last stanza begins with and. But if you look at the other poem, and, why does the speaker repeat and all the time? Okay, so now remember, repetition is used to emphasize, but to emphasize what exactly? The repetition of and throughout the poem emphasizes the different list of aspects that the speaker disapproves of. Okay, that's a straightforward question. But I doubt you'd get something like that in the exam. I don't know. Maybe you will. I don't know. Seems super easy. Number 12. Effect that what is the effect with the use of capital letters in the poem? Refer to diction in your answer. The use of capital letters in the first stanza shows that the garden probably is a reference to the Garden of Eden, which is a figurative garden that has familiar connotations, connotative, ambiguous meaning. Sorry. The chapel has replaced the garden, is also capitalized. It indicates the church and the powers rather than the small place of worship. Right? I didn't include this Garden of Eden situation in my initial analysis, so yeah, I would just stick to what we've discussed in the beginning, right? Okay, last question. With reference to punctuation, what mood is created with the phrase "thou shalt not"? Okay, okay. So the phrase "thou shalt not" begins with a capital letter. I'll just change this and ends with a full stop in the middle of the line to highlight the finality of the command. The speaker believes that religion does not allow freedom that one would find in a garden, and this creates an oppressive mood for the reader. Right? So don't forget, mood and tone both refers to a feeling or emotion. However, tone means how does the speaker feel, and mood means how do you, the reader, feel. Okay, so grade grade 12s, right? I really hope that this video helped you, um, especially in preparation to any task that you are writing soon or assessment, or um, any upcoming exams that you um, are completing anytime soon, right? If it's your June exam or if it is your September or end of year exam, I wish you all the best, and I really hope that this video helps. If you are, if this poem does appear in your exam, best of luck. Once again, as always, guys, don't forget to drop a like at the end after watching this video. Please comment if this helps you understand the poem or answering your exam poetry questions any better. Right? Please leave me a comment. It would really mean a lot to me. And don't forget to subscribe for this channel. There will be more videos popping up soon. And lastly, as always, please share this video um, with as many grade 12s out there or anybody who's in need of assistance with regards to understanding or analyzing poetry, right? for the upcoming exam. Right. So once again, best of luck to you with whatever's happening in your life, and I hope to see you soon on our next video.